Two opposing but constant forces in Magic the Gathering are fantasy staples always guaranteed to clash. In March of the Machine, we see these two classically feuding races team up against the invasion of New Phyrexia. Hey everyone, I'm Simon and welcome back to the Ether Hub and more Magic the Gathering lore. Today we are exploring more previews for Magic's latest set, March of the Machine. One of the most interesting inclusions to this set are these team-up cards, where two otherwise opposed characters from the lore work together to fight against New Phyrexia. It's meant to show just how desperate this fight really is, that even stout enemies must work together just to survive. And nowhere is that more apparent than with Drana and Linvala. Now, as strange as it is to see angels and vampires working together, this isn't the first time we've seen this type of pairing in Magic the Gathering. While this may be the first on-card example of these two races working together, we do have a symbolic union between them with the character Rodolph Duskbringer. Now, many of you may not have even seen this quirky angel vampire before, it being introduced in a Jumpstart set. And while we don't have a lot of lore on Rodolph, we know he may be connected to the black-white angel Liza from Innistrad, which honestly seems fitting for an angelic vampire. So we do have some precedent here, and Drana and Linvala brings this unlikely pairing to the story of MTG. In this video, let's explore the lore of these characters and how they can work together. We'll also examine how their personal traits are reflected on their shared card. Remember, if you enjoy the content here, please consider supporting the channel with a like, becoming a subscriber, and of course sharing it with your friends. Now let's get back to the lore. On the plane of Zendikar, the local vampire population is one of deep traditions and mysterious origins. Conquering the dark regions of Malakir and Guldraz, the vampiric hordes trace their bloodlines back to singularly powerful progenitors, known as bloodchiefs. These leaders of vampiric families were the first of their kind, and from their fangs, their houses grew and vied for power and control. Drana is the bloodchief of the Calastria vampires, and thus all of her children obey her will. Through guile, Drana brought her people prosperity, making the Calastria the wealthiest vampiric house on Zendikar. Though this too put a target on Drana's back, who had to fend off countless opponents over her extended lifetime. Though rogue assassins and rival bloodchiefs were always a concern, no bigger threat existed on Zendikar than the Eldrazi. These emotionless spawn of the blind eternities devour planes and all life who call it home. Titans imprisoned on Zendikar had broken free, and Drana's world was imperiled. But it wasn't just the Eldrazi her vampires had to worry about. It was traitors from within. Kalidas of the Get family was enthralled with the hive mind of the Eldrazi and quickly fell under their control. Made into living thralls, the Get vampires led a deadly campaign against their own kind. Drana stood fast against this corruption, fighting back both the Eldrazi as well as their vampiric slaves, refusing to subject her people to the monster's chains. The battle against the Eldrazi went on, as new threats rose, and the Titans themselves came to devour Zendikar. Unlike their nameless drones, these Titans posed a much more disastrous threat. At this time, all other bloodchiefs had died to this scourge, and Drana stood as the final bloodchief, the unquestioned leader of all vampires. While proud, Drana had to work alongside the other races of Zendikar just to survive, making a pact with the human Tazri and the planeswalkers who looked to defeat the Titans. With Ulamog and Kozilek eventually eradicated by the Gatewatch, Drana returned to her home with her people in tatters, and a new challenge would appear from their ashes. As bloodchiefs are the only ones who can create new vampires, and Drana standing as the final bloodchief, her people were essentially slowly dying out. Now she seeks the dark rituals that created the original bloodchiefs in order to save her race, but again putting her in stark competition with the other races of Zendikar. Being such a celebrated figure in Zendikar's lore, a long-standing character of the plane and literal leader of every single vampire on the plane, Drana has been featured in a lot of cards. I love her cards because they really illustrate her journey, starting with her title as bloodchief of the Calastria, to her heroic defense of the vampires of Malakir, and eventually her efforts to grow her population as the last bloodchief. Despite all of that, I don't see how Drana is represented in this card. Obviously, the vampire creature type and black mana symbol are all Drana, but none of this card's abilities were ever really represented on any of her other cards. She never even had vigilance. She does have flying because, well, vampires, but so does Linvala, which has wings, so yeah, a bit of a flavor veil not taking some Drana-specific abilities here. The Angels of Zendikar have a unique history. Being ageless, many of them have witnessed the original horrors of the Eldrazi when they first arrived on the plane. While that original attack ended with their imprisonment, the carnage they left behind tortured the Angels, who tried in vain to defend the innocent people of Zendikar. Because of these nightmares, many Angels cast a powerful spell onto themselves, known simply as Blinding Halos. With this magic over their eyes, the Angels' memories were erased, along with their knowledge of the Eldrazi, which was good for their self-esteem, but really bad for when the Eldrazi came back, and they couldn't access the best ways to combat them. That was the case for most of the Angels, but not Linvala. Linvala decided to live her life in agony, constantly flashing back to the dark days of the Eldrazi and suffering through it. She believed these memories reminded her of what she fought to defend, keeping fresh the terrible destruction she hoped would never return. But of course, it would return, and Linvala, not surprised by their appearance, flew to the vanguard to face this enemy once again. Linvala commands a special type of magic, with the ability to control sound. She's particularly adept at dealing with mages, canceling their voices before their lips can utter a spell. It was also incredibly useful on the chaotic battlefields against the Eldrazi. Linvala would quiet the field of the endless screeches of their enemies, leaving only the commands and orders of allies to echo through the fight, lending them a distinct advantage. Linvala has always been an inspiring presence in the skies of Zendikar, from leading the forces of Tazri in Zendikar's defense of the Eldrazi, to continuing on a more diplomatic role in the reconstruction of the plane. After the Eldrazi Titans were dealt with, the other Angels went on their original purposes, defending the weak from dark forces. Linvala, not blinded to the past, partnered with Tazri and the combined races of the plane in rebuilding Seagate as a hub for all, as a means to consolidate Zendikar's defenses should a new threat ever appear. Though bad blood existed across Zendikar between the races, the angelic voice of Linvala was able to sway even the most doubtful among them. While Linvala does dabble in blue mana from time to time, she's chiefly a white-aligned angel, with the 2 white mana symbols being drawn from her other cards printed. While Drana and Linvala to me didn't draw a lot from Drana's previous cards, it's inspired heavily from the themes of Linvala's. Taking from her use of the silence magic, the card can prevent activated abilities of opposing creatures from activating, which is also seen on Linvala, Keeper of Silence. Now, don't get me wrong, I love these team-up cards. The pairings of otherwise opposing characters in the lore is just really fun to see, especially when compared to the background of the multiversal war with New Phyrexia. But while many of these cards do a great job of taking elements from both participants, Drana and Linvala feels a bit off. It's much more Linvala than Drana. The only thing about this card that could be attributed to Drana, aside from the vampire type and black mana, is this second ability, and that's only because the first is so inspired by Linvala. The card having all activated abilities of all creatures your opponents control is really neat and certainly powerful. It plays off of Linvala's ability to silence your opponent's creatures, and then you get to steal those activated abilities to use yourself. It's a great piece of design, but I just don't feel the Drana elements here too much. I guess maybe Drana as a vampire can absorb the life energies of her enemies and use them herself, but that's kind of a stretch, I admit. All of Drana's previous cards focus on either buffing herself or other creatures, or making vampires from the creatures in graveyards. You know, more classic vampire things. maybe this one just flew over my head. So if you can think of a better way to pair this with Drana's character, let me know in the comment section below. Now, with these team-up video discussions, I like to take a stab at making my own card in place of the defending creatures of these planes. And on Zendikar, we have a lot of heroes to choose from. In more recent times, the human commander Tazri has become the symbol of Zendikari resistance in the wake of the Eldrazi attacks, and remains a true leader for the plane's populace. I would love to see her character continue to grow as we explore the plane in a post-Eldrazi story. As our team up, honestly, I would actually keep Drana. Essentially just replace Linvala with General Tazri. Of course, this means you would have to completely overhaul the card's abilities, both to represent Tazri and to also appropriately give Drana some love on it. But aside from that, it was the alliance of Tazri and Drana which turned the tide in the battle against the Eldrazi Titans. It was Tazri's understanding that one of the minds of those questioning the alliance with vampires. I think they would have made a perfect duo in defending Zendikar from this new threat, the Phyrexians. Anyway guys, I want to thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed our content, please consider supporting us by leaving a like, becoming a subscriber, and of course sharing it with your friends. It all goes a long way in helping us grow. As always, I want to thank you all so much, and until next time guys, see ya!